Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Let's Talk Comics. I am your host, Jim Viscardi. This is the official Image Comics podcast, your favorite comics podcast that goes one-on-one with your favorite creators in the business to find out how they got in, why they got in, what they're still doing in comics, and what they've got coming up. We have got a killer guest for you today, but before we talk about that, we got to talk some business first. If you're listening to this show and you're excited and you've been listening to past episodes, do me a favor. Stop what you're doing. Take a screenshot of this episode. Share it on social. Share it on Instagram. Share it on X. Share it on Threads. Share it on Facebook. I don't care, wherever. Just make sure you tag me, tag Image, and tag our guest, and we'll make sure to share it out and share the love that is the community of Let's Talk Comics. And then, if you're feeling extra grateful, extra giving, head on over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review over there, and then go to Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating there. Then go to Reddit and say, hey, I found this great new comics podcast. You guys should check it out and listen to it. That would mean the absolute world to me. The one thing I actually did not get a chance to do, and I meant to do last week on the Rob Liefeld episode, which you should check out, is say thank you to everyone who came out at New York Comic Con and said hello and said how much they love the show and offered some guest suggestions, all of which I'm taking very seriously and have on the schedule. It's awesome. I love being able to do this. I love that this show can help inspire folks to maybe explore some of the ideas that have been kicking around in the back of their head. I'm not going to lie. I've been exploring some ideas that have been kicking around in the back of my head. It's one of those things where the show can do a lot of things. It's for aspiring creators, for pro creators, for people to just kind of learn about the process. For some folks, they're learning about the business. For some folks, they're just enjoying the ride. They've got some of their favorite heroes, some of their favorite titles, their favorite creators, and they just want to hear more from them. And that is the goal of this show. So thank you. All right. Well, my guest today has done a bunch of work in the work for hire space for a really long time, but got his start, almost like a bunch of the guests on this show, at Top Cow. Started at Top Cow, moved on to DC, did some stuff on Green Lantern, Deathstroke, Spider-Man, Ultimate comic stuff, and whatever. I mean, look, he has drawn a ton of heroes. But the book we're going to talk about today is something different. We're talking to Tyler Kirkham. Tyler has a book coming out in a couple of weeks, depending on when you're listening to this, called Final Boss. It is a book that he has been working on for a really long time. It is his first book that is entirely his. He is writing and drawing it. And to hear where his inspiration came from, to hear what motivated him to try and get into the business and how to stay into the business and the opportunities that were put out before him. Also, and him dealing with a little bit of burnout is all really, really interesting. But Final Boss, this is Tyler unleashed. After years of building a name for himself as, one of comics' top artists, top cover artists, he's leveling up with this series. It is a brutal, in-your-face, high-octane, video game-inspired brawler that's almost as cinematic and interactive as it is personal. So, in this episode, we are going to dig into how Tyler went from making backyard horror movies and sketching NBA logos in his school notebooks to breaking in at Top Cow, straight out of high school, by the way, and then carving out a legendary run at DC and establishing himself as a prolific cover artist to finally stepping into the driver's seat with Final Boss. This is the story of an artist who never stopped evolving, from fan to pro to boss. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's talk comics. Tyler, man, welcome.
Wow. Yeah, man. I'm sold. I want to go buy that book. Sounds cool.
Oh man,
How are you?
it's a good man. I love your story, and you and I have gotten to get to know each other a little bit over the last couple of weeks as we've been prepping for this. But I gotta, so I start all of these shows with the same first question. And was doing comics always the goal? Is there a world where Tyler Kirkham was a vet at a zoo somewhere?
Yeah,
Was comics always the goal?
that's a great question, man. That's a perfect question for an opening podcast opening question. No, I honestly, dude, I really thought I was going to be an NBA player when I was in elementary.
Oh damn!
Like I was like,
okay, well now I got to ask. Well, how tall are you?
yeah. So I'm 6'2",
Okay,
and
all
so I
right,
was a little
fair.
bit taller than most of the kids in my class, anyways.
Okay.
Um, but and I just loved basketball. Like I was just a huge fan of
Mhm.
I think a lot of kids just kind of growing up in the '80s and '90s did anyways. I mean, people still
Right.
are obviously huge
Oh yeah.
fans of the NBA. But we had the Utah Jazz and we had the
Mhm.
Karl Malone and John Stockton era, which we made it to the finals a couple times against the Bulls,
Right.
and we got real close. But I just I had my own make believe team. I'd go out on the driveway, and it was like the Utah Sharks or something like that. We don't have sharks in Utah. we have a Salt Lake. So but I just thought sharks were cool. I drew the
Okay.
logo. I used to draw. I used to kind of like create my own little Nikes and stuff, like
Sure.
with in drawings.
That's amazing.
And then I also for a while I thought I was just going to be like a tractor driver because I just loved the cat tractors and the backhoes and
Mhm.
I think every little kid does though.
Sure.
And then I went from that stuff. I was in and out of drawing all the time anyways. I mean, I used to get in trouble for drawing for sure
Mhm.
in school. I was always doodling on my whatever paper I had, whether it be math or science or whatever. I was always kind of just drawing on the sides of the book page or the back of it, to the
Right.
point where I actually got in trouble for it a little bit. But it did work out for me because I ended up doing my school newspaper in junior
Okay.
high and in high school. So I was able to do art, for school anyway. So it actually worked out pretty good for me.
Right.
But at one point, I also thought I was going to be like a special effects makeup artist
Okay.
because I was really big into like the horror movies and stuff.
As I say, was it more influenced by horror movies or was it something else?
Definitely horror movies for sure. I was big
Okay.
into like Fangoria magazine.
Okay. All right.
And I loved Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers and all those. I still love slasher stuff, but
Mhm.
I just really liked the idea of making masks and stuff. I love the latex masks and all that stuff, and I just thought that might be something that I would want to do, or some sort of special effects. I used to make my own. I used to make my own Jason home movies, dude. Like just death scenes, dude. Like, or I would recreate the ones, like I'd have my friends come over for a sleepover or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and we'd go out there and we'd make. I had a really pretty good Jason costume when I was in
Okay.
like let's say sixth grade, right?
Mhm.
I had kind of built up the elements and had a pretty good mask and, painted my own stuff on it and my own dirt and blood and, ripped up the costume a little bit.
Nice.
The one piece kind of like jumpsuit. I had like a chain around my neck and everything like Jason had when he came back, how they sunk him in the lake or whatever.
Mhm.
Anyway, we'd go out and recreate home videos and, I'd have like, hey, my friend, get in the sleeping bag and then I'll cut and then we'll stuff it with pillows and then I'll, and then I'll drag the sleeping bag off the trampoline and bash it against some trees, like that classic scene
Right.
in
Yeah.
Friday the 13th. But so, another pretty cool shot that I had was I would bury my arm in dirt
Mhm.
and then I would film it coming up like a zombie arm, but it was
Ah.
Jason, Jason's hand, like coming back from the dead. So anyway, that was I was passionate about that for a while, but
Okay.
comics were always there for me.
Mhm.
My brother was into Spider-Man and Venom and Carnage and stuff when we were kids, and he had Spider-Man comics kind of all over his wall, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my older brother, so I wanted to be a little bit different from him. So I got into X-Men and Wolverine and stuff,
Okay.
But he got me into knowing what comics were. So, and then I kind of kept buying and collecting, and he kind of slowly got out of it. And I think it's just because I love to draw more than him, and I just
Do
kept
you
at it. And I just
remember
loved it.
do you remember who like some early artists were that you found yourself just kind of drawn to?
Yeah, definitely, man. For sure, for me, my earliest, um, favorite artist, my earliest, and still is one of my favorite artists, was Mark Texeira when he was,
Mm,
and I think it's because he was drawing Wolverine at the time,
okay.
and that's just what I loved,
Yep.
Bagley was up there with the Spider-Man stuff. I really got into like Joe Matter era, X-Men, and of course the um, Silvestri
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, and Jim Lee's X-Men and all that. And then I really, really, really got into comics when Image started.
Okay.
That's when it really took off for me, and things just, there was a different feel, there was a different look, the quality, the coloring, the paper stock. It just was like upgrade. It was like an upgrade, It was like the next level,
Right.
and I just captured my imagination more for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's just I it just seemed like it was, everything was just shinier and bigger and better, But obviously, I think it was just because in my young mind, it was just the quality of just the coloring and stuff really made a huge difference for me.
Sure.
That kind of digital kind of Photoshop coloring that they started doing,
Right. Right. And so, okay. Well, so then, yeah, I guess like at what point growing up do you make the decision I'm going to give this a solid go? Like were there is this a like, all right, at first I have to do this kind of in my spare time and I'm, you're doing different work to kind of, just live life or whatever,
Yeah.
or when do you remember like some of those early attempts
Hmm.
and then like when was it like, all right, I'm going to give this a go and I'm going to start pitching around?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, so even in high school, I actually, I was telling you about the newspaper stuff. I
Right.
actually ended up getting a professional art job in a local newspaper. Like I
Okay.
was drawing, and getting paid for it, which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was drawing some cartoons in this teen section that would come out in just my local Examiner, newspaper. So I was like, hey, this is actually cool. I'm actually like making a buck here doing art. And and then my parents were always really cool about taking us to conventions, like early on, because like I would draw pages for sure. Like I was drawing my own stories
Right.
all throughout school. Definitely into high school, I had a great art teacher who was like, if you finish your assignment, you can do whatever you want for the second half of the class.
Okay.
And I was like, me and a buddy were just working on comic stuff for sure. And yeah, developing our own stories and, heavily inspired by other stuff that was cool,
Sure.
like at the time. I mean, some of my earliest things I remember, you know, making my own characters over, like drawing Youngblood, but I'm changing the characters, or drawing Wildcats and I'm changing the
Mm-hmm.
characters to my own. I'm sure a
Right.
lot of artists did that, but
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, for sure. I remember going to a Las Vegas convention years and years ago. I don't even know what the convention was, but everyone was there. Jim Lee was
Okay.
there, Silvestri, Stephen Platt, I think Liefeld, like just a lot of the big guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a portfolio review by a couple of them. Definitely
So
was not.
what was in that portfolio, and like what was when you're putting together that first portfolio, what are things
Mhm.
that you thought you needed that you then realized, oh, maybe I didn't need that.
Yeah. Well, it was like 4 pages, and I think I
Okay.
actually got it um online, but it was definitely like a Wildcats thing, I think.
Okay.
So it was one of those things where, they put it up online for people to
Oh,
grab
like,
the
hey,
script.
Yep.
I did that a few times. Actually, I did that with Top Cow as well. Did like a Witchblade sampling and or Cyberforce or something like that. But it was, I think, 4 pages of Wildcats, and it was a city scene, so it had all the essentials that they would need to see.
Right.
And I just, I was trying my best, man. I remember Jim Lee saying, definitely telling me I needed a lot of work on my vehicles. That
Okay.
stood out. My cars were very boxy and just not realistic at all.
Right.
But it was very cool. It was very awesome to actually meet those people, and everyone was really nice. And I was a young kid and stuff. So, but then out of high school, I think, or even during high school, we got to go to San Diego one time, San Diego Comic-Con, which was so cool. Obviously, back when it didn't seem like it was so hard to get in, like it is now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I know we didn't buy tickets a year in advance. That's for sure. Because there's no way my parents would have thought to do that.
Sure.
But I had a friend go on a church mission.
Okay.
In California. And he like an LDS mission. Yep. And he was one of my friends I grew up with real close. He also loved comics and art and stuff. And we would send him care packages, like, say, hey, here's whatever, like,
right.
Just because he was our friend.
Issues of whatever.
Yeah, like, just send him cool stuff, keep him updated, send him a letter, whatever. And I would send him copies of my new art that I was doing. Okay. And he was living in a house in like Santa Monica area. And there's other people that are in that house that used to be missionaries, and they're kind of just roommating there, I guess, right? Or they have their own room. And one of the dudes that was living there, like, another 19-year-old, 20-year-old at the time, was like, hey, like, there's a comic book studio like right down the road. And it was Top Cow. So, and, I didn't know this guy at all. He just saw my pages and stuff. And he's like, I'm going to walk these in there. He's like, I'm just going to walk these over. And, he's like, I kind of wanted to go in there anyways and check it out. Like, cause he knew it was there. And,
right. Damn, what a friend.
And he did. He walked in the front door. They had a receptionist at the time. And he was like, is there anyone I can show these to? And, he ended up showing them to Renee Geerlings, who's been around for a long, long time, as an editor, and she's done all sorts of stuff. But he showed it to her and got her email. And then all of a sudden I've got an email of an actual editor, right?
All right.
And I didn't even know this guy, so it was so cool that he was doing this.
Sure.
And now I had an email, so I could email her, and then she was like, yeah, I remember seeing the stuff. Just maybe send it up, send me whatever you have every couple months or something, and I'll be happy to look it over. And that's exactly what I did. I was just working at like Sam's Club or something, pulling carts, and I was just kind of drawing
sure
on the side. And this was still like in high school, so like I was maybe a senior.
So you're like starting, like, young. Just
I've got a foot in the door now, and I continued to send her stuff, and then eventually she hit me up and she was like, hey, Tyler, I might have a project for you. It's another independent thing. It's called The Gift, right? Raven Gregory's writing it. He's another independent guy. He's trying to start out. He hired Renee to edit this project on the side. And she linked me up with him. And I started doing that. I started drawing that comic. Like, I'm still living at my parents'. I'm still working at Sam's Club. I'm doing issues like at night or whatever after work. And I'm growing as I'm drawing this book. I'm getting paid now. And like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 issues into it. And she's like, hey, you know what? I'm seeing a lot of potential, a lot of growth. Come out here, meet like Mark and the other guys. And just come out and like, for a couple days. And I did do that. And I came out, I stayed with my buddy that I was telling you about. And they were like, hey, if you can move out here to California, you can come in and work in here in the office,
Video.
which is so cool. So I think I went back out another time for a couple of weeks and stayed in kind of their intern house. Kind of got used to it, found another place that I could move into, with some roommates. And that's what I did. I went back home. I quit the job and packed up and moved out there. And right out of high school, pretty much, man.
That's
So
that's bananas. All right, okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of your early experiences working with somebody else, working with a collaborator, working off someone's script. What are things? Because up to this point, you were just kind of you were doing samples based off scripts, but that was just kind of sterile and in on your own, right? Like now, some of the early stuff you're working with someone else. What kind of was that like for you?
Yeah.
Because now, this is, you're like, oh, I'm starting to get in, what do you try to make sure that you do or don't do, or, just early
totally.
stories there.
I mean, so I had script with The Gift.
Right.
That was my real first experience of working from a comic book script. It wasn't just sample pages. It was like a whole story, it was very intimidating, obviously. And, I remember the first day that I started working on it, because I was so nervous that I didn't have a regular job anymore. I was like, no, I take that back. I was still working my regular job at this time.
Okay.
And I think I took a day off or something, but I was really nervous to start working on the pages. I was like, I'm just going to loosen up and play a video game for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I played I don't know, Tony Hawk or something.
Sure.
And my mom was like, what are you doing? Are you supposed to be working? And I'm like, yeah, I'm so nervous to start the page, But once I got into it, it started flowing, and I felt better. But yeah, that was my first experience with an actual full comic book script. But Raven was breaking in at the time, the writer, so he was very open to having multiple phone calls and working through things and fleshing things out with me, which was really cool. So, but what was cool about the experience was, once I moved to LA area, Santa Monica, I'm in the studio. I'm working in the bullpen, which was, a lot of those studios used to have those kind of bullpen areas where artists would just come in and there's 10 desks set up, and, you do your thing, and there's a bunch of other people there, which is really, really cool. And I did that for a while, and Mark and some of the other artists would have kind of helped me, even though I'm not working on a Top Cow book. They were, I was almost like an intern.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. But I'm working on another project, but they're still helping me, giving me critiques and giving me tips and stuff.
So who else is in the studio at that time?
So in the studio when I got there, it was literally right after, when I went out there the first time to visit, they were in a bigger office where everyone was there, Michael Turner, Finch, Joe Benitez,
damn. So you were
Brian Ching, a lot of these guys
with
Peter Steigerwald,
Top Cow All-Stars.
Yeah. So that's the generation before us.
Yep.
And then when I got there, they moved across the street to another building, and it was me, Mike Choi, Eric Basildua, Dave Nakayama, and occasionally we'd still see some people pop in, right? Like Finch and Joe Benitez and stuff like that. But Michael Turner had started Aspen, and they were just in another part of the city. So I only saw him every once in a while in gatherings, or I'd play Halo and stuff with him sometimes, which was cool. And then Francis Manipool, he was also kind of part of our generation, but he lived in Canada, but he would come over and visit and stay. Joel Gomez was there as well. He was my roommate, and he was in the office as well. Matt Banning, Bat was still coming in. He was inking me for a while, which is cool. We saw like Joe Weems and stuff every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
There would just be people that pop in, but they weren't like everyday regulars,
Right?
like us.
Sure.
But yeah, I would come in during the day and be there when all the editors and production people were there.
Okay.
And kind of, show my face. And then I would go back home, and then I'd come back at night when all the artists came in, because that's why I felt like I needed to be there as well,
Mm-hmm.
And then, we'd go get coffee and donuts or do whatever and draw, throughout the night. So I was living on very little sleep at the time, but it was worth it because by going in the day, the editors saw me. They saw that I was active, I was trying. And that's how I ended up actually getting the work is by being there when the editors were there. Because they could actually see that I was like working,
Right.
And I was available. I was there. So I ended up getting Strike Force was my first gig at Top Cow.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool. All right. So doing some of the early Top Cow stuff, what would you say maybe were some of your biggest takeaways that then gave you maybe the confidence to branch out a little bit? Because I guess at this point too, right? Like you would have done Top Cow kind of right into, I guess, what was then Ultimate Fantastic Four? Was that first for you, or was that?
I think I did.
Or was it Green Lantern?
I did a couple crossovers. Like I did a couple Marvel Image crossovers.
Oh, okay.
Or Top Cow crossovers.
Oh, yeah, right. I remember. Right,
like
you did
Fusion, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, now I'm trying to think what came first, but I did a couple. I did a couple issues of Amazing Spider-Man, like fill in, and I did the Fusion book, which was like New Avengers or Thunderbolts and like Cyberforce or something.
Right.
I did like before the Marvel stuff. I actually did some crossovers with DC though. Like I did Superman, Batman, or I did Superman: The Darkness.
Crossover. I remember that one.
Which was
really that was where honestly that was the book that first like kind of put you on my radar, where like I picked that up and I was like, oh snap,
awesome.
Yeah, no. So okay, all right. So like, is that so with like that Top Cow stuff? Then like, even for Darkness Superman, like, is that? How do you get a project like that? Is that Top Cow coming to you saying, all right, we've got this project and we want you to do it? Or is it like you maybe knowing it's on the horizon and being like, I want that?
No, it was definitely all Top Cow for sure. Okay. Like I did the Strike Force stuff. And then maybe a couple of other like issues here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I did like Legacy of Kain, like a video game project. Yep. And then, they were like, hey, we've got this thing from DC. Do you think you could draw like Superman? And I was like, holy cow. And I was like, really? So I did a couple of just Superman samples, I guess,
Okay.
And I remember like I had his hair way too messy, and they came back and they said, no, it's gotta be a lot cleaner with this, you got the S curl and stuff. But I had him like a little bit more like, I guess, let's just say like, I don't know, emo looking maybe or something. Like,
okay.
His hair was a little longer and messy. And I definitely had to change that. But other than that, they liked my Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like stoked, dude. I remember like the feeling. I think I called home and told some friends. I was like, dude, guess what I get to do? I feel like this is actually like a big thing,
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up doing a lot of crossovers, dude. I did like New Avengers Transformers. Like I was like a crossover guy for a while.
Okay.
Which was so fun because they were like 2 to 4 issues, 5 issues maybe.
Right.
And I'm drawing new stuff all the time. Yeah. And it's like really cool drawing all these different new characters. But and then I ended up doing like Darkness Wolverine as well, which is cool. Yeah. I don't really know how they work these deals out, but I know that for a while, Top Cow was working these side deals out with Marvel and DC. And
Yeah.
I think it's because Marvel and DC wanted Silvestri drawing stuff.
Well, yeah. I think that's
You
that's
know,
more
so
how
that's when. So they had like, it's like, hey Mark, can you draw a new X-Men? And he's like, yeah, but we're gonna need some, to put our other guys on projects, which
right.
was really really cool. So that's essentially how I started getting that Marvel work.
Okay. So from that, then it's Marvel editors that are reaching out to you, or DC editors that are reaching out to you, being like, "Hey, saw this."
Yeah. So the only thing that was like interesting about it was because I was working for Top Cow,
Right.
like through Top Cow for Marvel, like we'll never, like, I don't get royalties from any of those Marvel books I did because
Sure.
it was like a completely different situation. But yes, that's essentially how I started meeting
Mm-hmm.
some of the editors, because I was working with Marvel editorial and production and stuff. But what happened was I think it got the attention of DC,
Mm.
because that's kind of what happens.
Right.
And I had a couple of things, a couple emails here and there from DC editors and convention conversations, but I was still like really happy at Top Cow.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was doing, like I don't know, I saw myself kind of eventually just doing my creator own stuff,
Right.
um, and at the time though, Green Lantern was like the hot project, man.
Was
Like
the book.
anything Green Lantern was like
Yeah.
really cool. Jeff Johns, all that cool stuff. And one in every three people at a convention had a Green Lantern shirt on, I swear.
Yeah. It was, there during that era, it was like a top 3 series for sure, to be reading.
Definitely. And so I remember when that opportunity came to work on a Green Lantern title, I was like, holy crap. Like they're putting me right in there on something big, And this was, they were really cool because they when they offered it to me, the Green Lantern Corps project, I said, well, I just want to make sure that I get to pick my inker and my colors, because that's very important to me,
Okay.
Because a lot of times when I was doing some of the stuff for Marvel, I didn't have that opportunity every time,
Sure.
I mean, really, that's just how it is. Like sometimes you're just put with who's available, which is fine. But I had I had got to the point where I kind of knew how I wanted my style to look.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to get me my inker and my colorist, which was awesome. They worked out separate, contracts with them.
Can I have you elaborate a little bit on that? Right. Like you don't necessarily have to name any names, but what was maybe being done with your work that, like, not that you were maybe unhappy with, but like wish maybe would have been done different, that now when you got to pick kind of your partner in this.
Yeah.
Like what is it about your art that you wanted to make sure was shown?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, up to this point, I had kind of still been trying to find myself, I guess, like I would have certain projects where I'd be really happy with it. And then I would go and change something up and be like, hey, I think I can just go straight from pencil to color, or whatever. And it's typically because who I wanted to work with wasn't available,
sure,
or was doing something else, right? So when the DC project,
you would do like super tight pencils on purpose then?
Yes, I tried that like on a couple things.
Sure.
And it was okay, but to me, it has to be with a certain like color style or something,
Yep.
So, but once you commit to something, you got to do like at least one issue or a few issues of it, right?
Right.
So, because you can't just keep changing the way that issue, especially if you're on like a book like Fantastic Four or something,
Yeah.
You got to change. You can't just change your stuff mid run, I guess. But so when I got the opportunity to do the DC stuff, I knew what inkers I loved. I loved like Matt Banning, Bat, and Joe Weems and stuff. That's the style of inks I like. That's who Silvestri uses. That's just what I like. And, I had worked with Bat on the Superman Darkness crossover, and I knew I loved it. I was like, man, this is like the best my stuff has ever looked, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the colorist for that project wasn't available, and I don't even think he was coloring comics anymore. So there was another colorist who I'd been working with just on covers who was very in demand, and Nia Ruffino, she was not really available for me to use, like, I think for like Top Cow stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hey, how would you feel about doing stuff for DC? And she was open to it. And then they reached out to her, and we got her on board. And I was like, yes, that was actually my first time really working with her on interiors, but I knew that I loved everything that she did otherwise for me, all the
Mm-hmm.
covers and stuff, right? Just beautiful, beautiful colors. And I knew that she would kill it. So, I had the team in place, and man, it was so fun. I feel like you kind of go through ups and downs and waves and stuff with your work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all based on kind of like motivation and inspiration. And if you're loving the project and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to put more effort into it. You're just going to be more passionate about it. And I remember going into the DC stuff, the Green Lantern stuff, just being like fully into it, fully involved.
Right.
Like, I want this to be like a new, because this is my first DC work. So I'm
Right.
like, some people aren't even going to know who I am. I want them to see this and be like, who is this guy? And I want to start following his work and buying his comics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they've never seen any of my other stuff.
Right.
So I kind of was trying to reinvent myself a little bit with the new publisher, with the new books. And yeah, it was just an awesome experience. I got to do the Green Lantern stuff for a while, man.
Right. And so then like, look, from there, I mean, like, you had there was a pretty healthy run in doing, a bunch of different work for hire stuff, a lot of it for DC. You mentioned pretty early on that, like, when you were at Top Cow, you were like, all right, I want to do my own thing. Then obviously, you took the opportunities that you saw that you thought would help progress your career and whatnot. So then, like, at what point do you just have like a bunch of different ideas and notebooks that are just kind of like sitting on a table somewhere that you go to every so often? Like, when did you really want to try and take some of that stuff a bit more seriously?
Well, so I was exclusive with DC. Like, I was under contract, so I knew I couldn't just, go bounce around or do whatever.
Right.
But they were really cool about me doing stuff. Like, I did like a couple of children's books or whatever.
Okay.
Just for fun and like with my brother, and then me and my wife did one and stuff later on. But I did, I had a really fun idea early on that I ended up getting published through Zenescope. And so this was a creator run that I actually did while I was working at DC, but I was only the creator / writer. I wasn't drawing it.
Oh, okay.
So I did all the, kind of character designs, concepts, and everything. So they were okay with that because it didn't affect my deadlines at all. Mm-hmm. Like, I was still like a monthly guy. And I love horror stuff. So it's called Screwed Project Frankenstein. It's like a modern, mature take on the Frankenstein legend with a female monster. And it was a 6-issue thing that I created with a friend of mine. And he helped me kind of plot the whole thing out, script it out, and put the dialogue. And it was just a really, really, really fun outlet for me on the side of doing the art stuff, right? Because I was just an artist for DC. I wasn't really doing any sort of creative or, I'd get to create the occasional character design, which is really fun because you get to do a lot of that in Green Lantern and like Superman and stuff. Mm-hmm. But this was just like a little side thing for me, and it's because it wasn't for like Marvel or whatever. DC didn't seem to really care too much. But yeah, that was like the only other thing that I've really had published. I do have a couple of just other ideas, like you said, in notebooks or just like kind of on my hard drive that I've just had floating around, just forever. You know what I mean? Just things you kind of think about here and there. And
no, totally. Well, okay. Well, we're gonna obviously get to final ball. So right before that, I want to talk a little bit about things that that you learned in doing, a bunch of the work that you did over that early part of your career that affected your philosophy when it comes to storytelling or and even just like, real nerdy things like page design and things like that. Like where did you feel that like maybe there was an instance where you knew maybe you were weak, but you worked on it and like now you feel really good about it and it's become kind of like, a core part of how you approach stuff?
Yes, for sure, man. No, there's definitely like a point for sure. And it's before it's before that DC stuff, man.
Okay.
I'll just call it my rebranding or relaunch or whatever.
Sure.
There was a point, like even with the Fantastic Four stuff, all the like the Phoenix War Song stuff, right? I did Phoenix War Song. Even though like it's like such an awesome project, like I'm drawing the X-Men, it's freaking cool. Like before I got Ultimate Fantastic Four, I was in talks to do Ultimate X-Men with Robert Kirkman, which would have been really cool.
Oh wow!
But they put me on Fantastic Four, which is fine too. Great project. But I did get to do the Phoenix War Song stuff. But I was like in this. I was living back in Utah at the time, by the way. Like I lived in LA for a couple of years, and then we moved back home because that's where all my family and friends and stuff were. Wouldn't trade the LA experience for anything. It was so awesome. It was amazing. I loved it. In fact, I always thought I'd end up back there. But I was too expensive and everything now. So
then,
yeah. But I, back home, and I was kind of like in this phase where, like, I was treating like I was almost felt like a job. Like it was just a job, and I was like, I'm going to get
through by numbers. It was draw by numbers.
Yeah, like I'm going to get through it, and then I'm going to go play Oblivion or something. Like because I got into the mode where I'm like I'm at home.
Sure.
And I for some reason I just you do go through these phases, and I don't know if it's like I said, inspiration or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like one of those things
you get
where
too comfortable.
Yeah, I was like, I'll get through the day. I'll get through the page. I know I gotta, I'll kind of like get approved and kind of just scrape by. I'm not scrape by, but just kind of
sure. But
you know what I'm saying? Like I'll just
do what you need to do to get the page done.
Almost like minimal effort or something.
Okay.
But and then I'm like, then I'll go do whatever. I'll go chill. I'll go, like I said, play video games or whatever, right? Which is terrible. But I'm glad I did that because a friend called me out on it, like a close friend who actually lives there. He's like, Dave, why are you just kind of half-assing it? And I didn't even really think about it until that time. And I was like, man, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
And then when I got the DC stuff, like, and up to this point now, ever since then, I've put like maximum effort into everything I do. And that thought comes back all the time. Like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm really going to go full steam. And,
because it feels like that would have been a moment that like your life could have been completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I could have not got another gig. You know what I mean?
Right.
But here's the thing though, like, and this is definitely true with comics. I was always on time.
Yep.
I'm hitting deadlines. I'm keeping editors happy. And it's almost like I got into this mode where I was like, hey, that's what I really need to be doing is producing. But then there's the other side of it where it's like, there was the artists who were really, really good, but they only did like a couple things a year.
Right.
But those are the ones that I admired. You know what I mean? So
So
I'm
it's
like,
like,
well,
well, if so and so can only has to do 6 issues a year, well, why can't I?
yeah. And so I'm like, I'm gonna do, rather than like, slacking or doing whatever, I'm actually just
Right.
gonna work more hours.
Sure.
So that the pages turn out the way I want and I'm happy with everything.
Uh-huh.
So I took the start at DC as a relaunch for myself, you
Okay.
know. And that's, like I said, I feel like I've continued to do that.
Right. Well, and then
To this day,
I mean, look, I mean, I'd also say, I feel like, if that was Tyler version 2.0, I feel like within the last couple of years, I feel like we've seen maybe Tyler 3.0,
for
right?
sure.
Because I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
the stuff that you've done recently, and look, you were one of the earliest adopters to live selling, right? And like whatnot.
Mhm.
Like that's kind of where Final Boss was kind of born and came onto the scene in that sense, right? Like you've done the Kickstarter thing, and we'll get to that. So, but let's before we get to that part, let's talk about the origins of Final Boss. Where does this idea come from? When does it hit you? And then at what point do you feel ready to jump into a book like this?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I'm still kind of doing stuff at DC, right?
Right.
I'm doing, I did the long run on the Green Lantern stuff. I did a lot of Action Comics, Superman stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I did Teen Titans for a good long while. And then I did the Deathstroke stuff. And it was during the Deathstroke stuff that me and Tony Daniel kind of got close, right?
Mm.
And we kind of started talking about different creator owned stuff. I don't like, hey, what we should do something, pitch a creator owned book or something, right?
Okay.
And we never did, but we always had these cool ideas, and it just got me motivated to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he had his projects he was kind of developing and, doing his stuff with, I think he worked with Scott Snyder and stuff as well. But, and me and him talked about pitching a book to Image years ago, but like I said, we never did. We both kind of kept doing our different things. And, and DC kept just giving me work, and I was happy. And then I started getting more cover work. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
I was getting, when the whole like retailer exclusive thing kind of popped off,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
I found myself getting all sorts of covers. And I was like, dang, this is freaking awesome. Like, and to the point where I was getting requested so much that I'd had to turn covers down because I was working on interiors.
Sure.
So that's when I was like, hold on a minute. I think on the next project that comes around, if it's not something I'm extremely passionate about, I'm going to just try to focus on covers. Let's just try this, and, I can put full effort into the covers. I can start doing gray tones and do all sorts of stuff. So the originals are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, that's kind of what I did. And then if occasionally like a project would come around, like, hey, can you do this fill-in issue of Detective Comics? Of course, I'd love to. Or can you do this Lobo project or whatever it may be, something really fun. It's like maybe a one shot, or a fill-in issue. Mm-hmm. And I still got to kind of scratch that itch of storytelling. But I was really focusing on the cover stuff. And at one point, I was like the most requested cover guy at DC. They told me that, which was really cool.
Oh.
So I was like, that's awesome. That's really cool to hear. So I was just doing that. I started getting the stuff from Marvel, the cover work from Marvel, and just kind of blew up into covers for every publisher. I wasn't exclusive at DC anymore. I could do whatever I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And at that
was
time,
that a hard decision? Was that a hard decision for you to make, to not re-up
the DC thing?
Yeah.
No, because I was still actively doing work for them.
Okay.
It was like the same thing. I just didn't have paperwork behind it,
Sure.
A signed document. Mm-hmm. But it was essentially the same thing. I was working with the same editors. In fact, I almost felt like it kind of them knowing that I could go to DC or to Marvel or whatever might keep this a little bit more interesting, right?
Right.
But that being said, it also gave me a little bit more time to start doing the creator-owned thing, which I had Final Boss as an idea anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm going to start just picking away at this. Like just on the side, let's say I get a cover done and I don't have something else due until the end of the week. Let me go in and start sketching some things out, writing some things down. And I had like, I don't know, maybe a few sketches, a few layouts and a pitch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I think there's something here, you know? And, gosh, I'm trying to think. I don't even know who I sent it to or if I sent it to publishers back then. I saw a lot of success from people on Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Okay.
You know, this is like when people were making a couple $100,000 on campaigns, right? Or more, you know? So I'm like, gosh, maybe I'll try that. Like these people are killing it, you know? And, I got the first issue done. When I do a crowdfund, I like to have the book done before I put it on there.
Right. Yeah. Because you don't want to have to deal with the.
Yeah. I want to guarantee that the book's actually going to get out there in a certain amount of time. So I finished issue 1 and I'm like, let's just do it. Let's go to Indiegogo because that's where I'm seeing these big numbers and stuff. And I try that. It's so much work. Those campaigns are so much work, man. And it was cool. It worked out really well. You know, got the issues completed, got them all shipped out, did all the extra cool things, the magnets, the stickers, the cards, the bookmarks, all the t-shirts, everything, right? The whole bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly after that is when, like Whatnot's coming onto the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they hit me up about making a channel and doing this and doing some Invincible covers and stuff. I'm like, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, gosh, I've got this project here that I could put on here and kind of print on demand. So, you know, we start doing like exclusives and cool convention covers and exclusive covers and, you know, all the cool stuff, the medals and the foils and all the limited, really, really limited. But it ended up being that Final Boss almost turned into like kind of like a chase, almost collectible item rather than, you know, getting a lot of readers in there, which is what that's obviously the end goal. But it was still really cool because, you know, I've got like these limited books that are selling out that are, you know, a minimum of $20 up to who knows how much.
But you're also at the same time, like you're building the brand, you're reestablishing kind of yourself. And like I said, like it really did feel like that moment was Tyler 3.0 where, yeah, everyone, you know, folks who may have been fans of your earlier, like DC work or whatever, like, you know, was friends of your interior stuff. And then you ended up doing a lot of covers. And so you got some name there, but now you're kind of pushing both of those things together to do this.
Yeah, for sure.
So what were some of the, let's talk about the genesis of the idea though, right? Like, so it's an idea obviously that you've been kicking around in your head.
Yeah.
I know like yesterday we were talking with some retailers about this and, you know, this is a book that feels like it wears a lot of its influences on its sleeves, but not like, you know, it's more in reverence to it, not necessarily like, you know.
Yes, totally, man.
Ripping from it.
Yeah. And for me, I was like, the very first kind of influences from it was I want to make a comic book that feels like a beat 'em up video game, like a side-scrolling beat 'em up, Streets of Rage, Double Dragon type of style, where as you go through the comic, the issue might feel like the new stage or the new level, right? And the character levels up. His attributes change. And I just really liked kind of that initial idea of writing a comic series that felt like you were going through the levels of a video game, I guess. And I had some cool ideas for story anyways that kind of worked out when I kind of blended them together. It just kind of mashed up and made like a really nice little storyline that I could actually write and felt comfortable writing. And I the initial thing was like when video games and comic books collide, you get Final
Mhm.
Boss. That was kind of my initial like thing. I was
Right.
like, I'm going to capture kind of the gamer guys, and gamer audience, and the comic people, and the action movie people, and all the stuff, right? So by doing that, I'm just like, I'm going to take all the cool stuff that I loved growing up, that I personally loved, and use that as inspiration for the story. So that's when I was like, I want an action hero like someone you'd see in Bloodsport or
Mhm.
Kickboxer or whatever, right? But he's also could be badass like Rambo or whatever, like at some point. And I kind of took some of my comic book stuff too, like the Deathstroke stuff, and like I'm like, I want this guy to be like badass and and really just have fun with it and tell a story that I want to tell
Mm.
and have like some really cool deep rooted family kind of history and drama to it that all ties back up almost kind of like Star Wars type of stuff.
Mhm.
Um And yeah, I just went for it, man. It kind of came naturally when I started doing it. When I
Mm.
started actually writing, I was like, this is fun. I'm actually having a lot of fun. I'm writing this. This is a blast. And you know what I mean? And then just
Yeah.
getting it on paper was really, really cool, man. So
Right. Well, that's so like what was it like then for you to really begin to build the world out, right? Like
yeah.
clearly you're a creative, right? And you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen a lot of other folks. This is, another real go for you to, like, you're in control. You're in the driver's seat this time. Like, you're not drawing someone else's story or whatever. And so like was there anything at first that seemed like super overwhelming, but once you got into it, just kind of flowed?
Um, Sometimes you definitely do get stuck up on something, but nothing that I can't really like I'll call friends and stuff.
Sure.
I'll use a can I call a friend card or whatever, and like, hey, can I run this idea past you and see what you think,
Okay.
and um or I'll talk to my wife and get her opinion. Like she read through Final Boss like 20 times, or whatever, and
Mm. Mhm.
and just to kind of give me her thoughts on it as someone that doesn't really read comics.
Sure.
And so no, I ended up kind of getting, even now I'm writing, I'm pretty far ahead of the game on it. I'm up to like
Mhm.
issue 11 on writing stuff.
Right.
And I was working on some script yesterday, and I was like just having fun with it. You know what I mean? Like I'll
Mhm.
pause and I'll think through, I'll do some research, and then I'll get back and get into a groove again. And the most fun thing that I've been, or one of the most fun parts of this is creating the characters and the designs and uh and just imagining these characters as if they were in a fighting game, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I mean
Um
it's like it feels very much um it's like you can feel Streets of Rage in it uh a bit, but also, right, like just even with the stuff that you got in the way that you're building the fights and whatever, right? Like we said
mhm,
yesterday, it's kind of like Mortal Kombat
exactly. Definitely Mortal
in a
Kombat inspired for
sense.
sure. Yep.
Um so can let's but before we get any further, let's talk about the pitch. Like
Yeah.
what is Final Boss?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. So like imagine like what if you had the blood of a god coursing through your veins, but you didn't know how to harness or control that power?
Hmm.
Like it triggers in fits of violence and rage. You're extremely powerful yet extremely dangerous. With every person you hurt or kill, you only get stronger.
Hmm.
So that's kind of essentially what Tommy Brazen is he levels up if he defeats the opponent.
Hmm.
He will absorb their energy and gain some of their attributes. And just some of the other kind of stuff, just speaking of a pitch for it, it's like forced to compete in an underground fighting league. I'm just going to read you this. Forced to compete in an underground fighting league to make a living. We follow disgraced former special operative Tommy Brazen as he discovers he has inherited supernatural powers. So that's kind of initially like the main thing there. And it's like he's following in the footsteps of his grandfather, who told him war stories about discovering an ancient temple on a remote island sanctuary, devoted to a forgotten god that possesses the power to grant supernatural gifts to the warriors who can best the demigod in battle. So with that, like there's this, this ancient kind of forgotten island in the South Pacific that his grandfather in World War II gets washed up and with his squad and discovers these ruins,
Mm-hmm.
And then Tommy sets out to trace the origin of his newfound powers. He discovers fighting not only triggers more intense reactions, but he gains power and levels up with each victory. He finds a fist to the face can solve a lot of problems. I love that. Now Tommy must earn his way to the island by competing in a fight after fight, so he can find out if the stories are true and who really is the final boss. So, I mean, you kind of get a good gist of like what I'm going for, I think there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this cool history with the grandfather, and he's been telling Tommy and his siblings these stories all throughout, their early young childhood, and they never really believed any of it until Tommy started showing signs of having some powers himself, like bursts of energy or outrage, and he's all of a sudden, getting in a school fight and the kids flying across the playground. You know what I mean? It's like, well, hold on, what was that?
Right.
And what makes it fun is his father, Tommy's father. It seemed to have skipped him. It went from the grandfather. It seemed to have skipped his father, and so he's like, "Well, hey, why? I'm gonna travel over to this island and see for myself. I'm gonna go find this demigod and spill some blood and get some powers myself." So what happens is now his dad's missing. We don't know what happened to him. Like he ran off when Tommy was young, and now Tommy really has this opportunity and he wants to go find him over there. And this fighting tournament just happens to be held on this mysterious island, right? So he's like, that's a perfect opportunity for me to go, do this, make some money, and find my dad. Find some real answers about who I am, what I am, and what are these powers that are manifesting in me. So
I love that. So you very, the premise of this, right? Like feels like you can do so much with it. Is it like there are some creators who have a general idea of where they want the story to go, and then they just kind of let issue by issue kind of determine how that goes. And there are some folks who have like their stories and world so tightly planned that like they know what's going to happen, from issue to issue. Do you find yourself in either one of those camps, or do you find yourself maybe a little bit more in the middle?
I definitely know where I'm going up to, like issue 15, 16 for sure. And then I've got loose ideas on where it could go after that. But I've got like the main storyline, right? That I can get to around that point. And then some really cool ideas on where to take it after that. And then I've also got some cool side stories that I've been developing too. On the side.
Yeah, because as I say, like this, like you've truly built a world here. Like this is not like you've got the story that you're telling right now, but it feels like there are characters and ideas and things that you are introducing that if you wanted to pick up and tell, you could.
Yeah, I mean, imagine like Tommy as like Ryu, and you've got all these really cool side characters that you want to explore.
Sure.
And you want to see what their history is, their past, their storyline, So I've got a couple of characters that are in the story, in the main final boss story that I definitely want to flesh out and kind of get their origin stories out there. So I've got one I've been working on. So let's see what happens.
I'll ask you. I got one or two more for you, and then I'll let you go. What is something you're excited for fans to get to experience when they pick up the first issue?
Yeah, definitely just an all out escape. Just just jump into the book, just enjoy some good action, some fun drama, some cool artwork, some good fighting in there.
Mhm.
And then hopefully they will read the first issue and just waiting for that next issue to come out. That's my goal,
Right.
And just kind of want to know more about Tommy. And one of the things that I think is going to be fun for people to read or to experience in this is that stuff we were talking about, right? Where,
Mhm.
who's the next boss, right? What's the next
Right.
boss going to look like? What kind of powers is he going to absorb? What's going to happen to his stats? Is his XP going to go up a certain amount or is whatever, right? Because I took that straight from like the old Marvel cards
Yeah.
that I absolutely loved, right? They had all the characters and it had all their attributes and stuff on the back, statistics and stuff.
Mhm.
And that was like, okay, I'm definitely putting that in here. Like, I want these, I want these characters, I want you to be able to read like how powerful they are.
Sure.
And I thought that was really fun to be able to have, Tommy absorb certain amounts of their abilities, and
Mhm.
you see him in the page, in the pages, and you also you see the powers, but you also get to see it in the numbers that his stats have changed, and you're like, dang, is this guy going to level? Look, is he going to eventually get to 100? I just think that's
Right.
really fun. I love that idea of the stats and
Mhm.
and just kind of some of that early stuff that inspired me. I'm putting it right in there,
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's right. I think it's one of the aspects of it that kind of makes it feel unique, right? Like it's a thing that you kind of only really get to experience in something like video games, but to see it kind of progress over a story in comics, I think is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, my last question for you, is in the first arc, what is the issue? Which issue do you think fans are really going to go, holy shit?
In the first volume?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. No, there's a character that I'm introducing, that I think she makes her first appearance in issue 3, but,
Okay.
I mean, I'm acting as if it's not out there, right? Like,
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah,
but
but I mean, you don't have to, but like, we don't have
yeah,
to spoil it or
and
whatever,
I
but
don't
it's
really,
more
yeah,
like
like it's,
for fans jumping
I'm gonna
in.
tease, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm gonna tease, but, it's, I think that character,
Okay.
people are really gonna want to know more about for sure. And she plays a big role in the whole story. And it's the character I was telling you that I'm kind of fleshing out on the side
Okay.
as well, because I think she's going to be a fan favorite. And
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to explore that and for people to jump in and be like, okay, who is this? Can't wait to see what happens with that character.
Right. I love that. Well, dude, this has been an absolute blast. I'm excited for fans to get Final Boss into their hands because I think this is it's going to be an even more fun ride for you as just like you said, like I just said, like it's as it gets out there more and folks are experiencing it. I'm hyped for you. But dude, thanks again. I appreciate the time and Final Boss, man. If you haven't,
Yeah,
depending on when you're listening to this, go tell your retailer you need at least 3 copies. And if you're listening to this after the fact, go find it, go pick it up, because you're gonna be in for a wild ride.
absolutely.
Tyler, man, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, dude. It's great to talk to you, man.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of Let's Talk Comics is done. Huge thank you to Tyler Kirkham for hanging out with us this week. What a fun episode that was. I have, at some point, have to do an episode about the Top Cow bullpen of the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, because gosh, so many people have come out of that studio that inevitably ended up working on big, crazy things that are now, that are still in it, doing their own thing. It's just, it's so cool to see that. I'm going to have to talk to Mark at some point too, which you can guarantee that is going to happen. But as far as Final Boss is concerned, go check it out. Go pick up a copy of this. This is a story that is as much about resilience and evolution as it is about big punches. There's a lot of punching. If you like your Mortal Kombats, your Streets of Rage, your Street Fighters, you're gonna like this book. So be sure to check it out wherever you get your comics, wherever you get your comics, and keep an eye out for what's next. So that's going to do it for us this week. I'll very quickly go through the business one more time. Leave a review, leave a rating, tell your friends, post on social, and that's it. I'm going to leave you right there. I hope you have a good week. I hope you read some really great comics. You got to keep reading comics, because the more you keep reading, or as long as you keep reading, we'll keep talking about it. We'll see you next time.